Okay. Hello, everyone. Um, I'm Carlos. Thank you for joining today's session. This is part of a series of webinar we are having on our business analysis practice. And today we are going to talk about mastering user stories writing skills.
Yes. Hello, Carlos. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. and we'll give a couple of minutes to join us. And Carlos, how many years have you been working as a business analyst? And most likely you work with the user stories.
Good question. Thank you, Kate. Well, I have more than 5 years of experience working as business analyst and also writing user stories since the very beginning when I started as associate business analyst. The main task that was assigned to me was to write user stories. So I have faced different moments with the teams and the customers to put down my ideas and how to provide more details about the requirements and how to build different digital products.
Yeah, I suppose it will be very useful talk for each of levels
Yeah,
because you can repeat something that someone can don't remember for now, and it will be a very useful talk.
yeah, I know, and it's very important to share all the details and have a structure how you are writing your user stories so anyone will be able to read and understand them.
Yeah. Okay, so I suppose that we can start, and I would like to start with a couple of moments from our community side. So today we will have our next webinar, Mastering User Story Writing Skills. Our speaker, Carlos, will summarize his knowledge and experience about different techniques that will help any business analyst to improve skills to write user stories and will amaze your team and client. A couple of additional moments from our side. A recording will be provided after the presentation. You can send questions in the chat during the event and we will read it at the end of our webinar. You also can give thank you badges for our speaker and also possible to put some rating on the event page. And one more interesting point, we have one activity during our weekly webinar events. At the end, the speaker will choose the best question in his opinion, and the author will receive a badge. So don't be shy and ask your questions. And now I suppose that we can start our webinar. Carlos, you have the floor.
Excellent. Thank you, Kate. Well, it's time to start. So about this topic, mastering user stories writing skills. These skills will provide you a better structured pool of tasks, a simplified product development process, and more quickly achieves quality. Moreover, it will promote higher engagement and transparency across the team. So let's start. The first step for today, please join into menti.com and use the following code because we are going to have some engagement moments into our talk to make it interesting among us. And well, feel free to scan the QR code or you can go straight to menti.com and enter this code. In the different moments, you are going to see the code to participate in the engagement questions that we have. So if you have entered into menti.com, please hit on the like button so we can give like 1 minute, maybe two, before to keep going. There are different moments just to know what are your current experience and knowledge about the user story writing skills, and I will emphasize in different aspects that you will like to improve. Okay, awesome. We are having people going directly to Menti. I guess we can give another minute and we will move with our next question. Well, will be the first of all the talk. Okay, I think I can keep going, and in the meantime, you can still log in into Menti. So this is our first question for today. What seniority do you have? Please let me know if you are associate, middle, senior, or lead BA or other position, or if you are in a B track. Okay, we have 50-50 about middle seniors. We have some leads. This is awesome. We don't have associates or people involved in the B track. Okay, this is nice. Most of people are on middle positions, so I will share important details for you. These will be great suggestions if you would like to apply them in your current project for an assessment, or even if you are looking for new customer or to change project. Awesome, we have some associates in the call. This is great. So let's keep moving. Well, this is the content for today. Kate was providing a quick overview about it. I'm going to share a brief summary of my journey. Moving with the user story structure, I'm going to highlight how to write user stories. There is a ground you should fulfill before to master your techniques. Then I'm going to move forward with Gherkin. This is a behavior-driven development technique. I'm going to introduce Gherkin structure as technique to write user stories. Additionally, I'm going to share its benefit for product roles, some examples, and a list of steps to guide you how to write user stories following Gherkin structure. And at the end, just as a bonus, I'm going to share some practices and artifacts to include in your user stories cycle. And well, finally, I'm going to highlight how those practices and artifacts can help you to write the user stories. So well, on the first section, let's go briefly with the introduction. This is my profile. I joined EPAM in November 2021 as senior business analyst. I have been playing a product manager role in a new project since 3 months ago within a travel company based in USA. Since my first day till my last day assigned as a business analyst with different clients, my main task was to write user stories. I can say the challenge I always faced was to write user stories that could be understood with anyone, regardless of the project or the role. I'm not an expert in some business domains. I have been involved in different business domains to learn more about fintech, considering that nowadays there are many ideas and proposals to develop the financial services stream. Finally, I want to share the extra mile I'm doing right now with EPAM. I'm a certified technical interviewer, an Anywhere ambassador, and a co-founder of our new BA community in Colombia. The key is in the consistency and dedication I can give every day on the goals I set for myself, because it's difficult to organize time to do so many things at once. Moving on, let's jump into our second point of the webinar, user story structure. Before to share some techniques and artifacts would improve your writing skills, let's review the foundation to write an user story. So please go to the next question into Mentee. How familiar are you with these concepts? Invest, acceptance criteria, business value, business rules, and estimation. The idea is like to provide from 1 to 5. How familiar are you with these concepts? Used to know how proficient and enough knowledge do you have to write and apply these concepts into your user stories? Okay, this is great. We have like 5 with estimation, 5 with business rules. Okay, this is keep being updating. We are having more knowledge and confidence with acceptance criteria and invest definition. Let's remember, invest is the acronym for independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable for our user stories. Okay, about the business value, let's remember we are writing user stories because there is a necessity for some customers or clients, and with the development of some feature, we are going to provide a business value based on the necessity or pain points people could have. Okay, we are having a less number for the business rules. This is very important to keep in mind. You will have a set of rules into your user stories. This is like the rules for your business that it's mandatory to accomplish, and it's very important to highlight them into your user stories. Thank you for your answers. So let's keep going. Well, about the foundation, let's remember what is the definition of the user story. Is the smallest unit of work for agile projects. You are going to explain of a user's need and how it can be met. The best suggestion is to use formal communication way, because if you are going to use jargon, it could be an issue of the understanding what you are writing with other teams and stakeholders. There are 3 aspects to cover into the user story structure. The first one is like the template. User stories follow a simple template. You need to fulfill 3 aspects: the who, the what, and the why of a particular requirement. So, for example, as a cyclist, I want to follow my friend's cycling route so that I can join them on rides. Or, for example, as a user, I want to sign up for an e-commerce platform so I can purchase products. It's very simple when you start mastering this template or other one. The main point is like to fulfill the 3 aspects: the who, the what, and the why. The next important part of the user story is the acceptance criteria. You are going to provide the conditions that the software product must meet to be accepted by the user, a customer, or another system. This detail will be very important for the development and the testing area that you can have in your team or your client. For example, you can say like the address field must be include the address line, the country, the state, or a zip code. Or for example, if you are working with login form, you can say like the password length should be between 8 to 16 characters. These are some examples for acceptance criteria. And the last question and the last part is related for the owner of creating user stories. I can say like the most following rule in all the industry is like the main task for a business analyst is to write user stories. But this is only a myth, because anyone involved into a project or in a company that you will invite to have a discussion or to analyze something, it's capable to write user stories. So if in different situations you will hear like is only the task for the business analyst to write user stories, it is not true, because other people it's available also to do it. but would be like one of the main tasks of the business analysis in different projects. Now, let's do a quick overview about the steps to write a user story. You need to fulfill these 4 steps. The first one, outline acceptance criteria. The definition of done is the set of criteria that needs to be fulfilled for your user story to be considered complete. Define the specific acceptance criteria for each user story and use it as a checklist. The second step, decide on user personas. Conduct extensive user research by creating surveys, hosting focus groups, and reaching user forums. Analyze your data and search for patterns to identify your key personas. And step 3, map stories. Use story mapping to structure work in a large process. In this case, your user stories will take the form of order steps. And finally, request feedback. Speak to users and potential customers to find out what they want. Ask them for their opinions on existing products or if they have suggestions for new features. Incorporate this feedback into your user story. So this is the ground for the user story writing. You need to fulfill these steps first before to master your current skills. Okay, so let's keep going. This is our next engagement question. How much do you know about Gherkin? You are an expert, you know what it means and you are using it. You don't fully understand it, or this is your first time listening about Gherkin. Let us know what are your current situation about Gherkin, because we are going to deep dive about it. Right now, most of people are using it, 75%. We have some people that don't fully understand it. It's fine because it's not easy. And if you don't practice it in your project, it could be hard later to apply it. Okay, awesome. We have people that it's the first time that are listening about it today. This is awesome because I have a great content to share with you. And also we don't have experts, so this is a great audience to explain the foundations about Gherkin. Awesome. Well, let's keep going. So on our audience, we have the most percent of people with some knowledge about it that are using it, and in other proportion, we have other people that are using it but don't understand fully at all. So I think this section would be very helpful to you. So let's start. Gherkin, it's a technique for behavior-driven development. So let's move on. Would you consider yourself a proficient writer of story details and interactions with users? If your answer is no, then Gherkin will be awesome for your daily basis. What is Gherkin? Gherkin is a business readable language which helps you to describe business behavior without going into details of implementation. Was created to define tests in automation tools like Cucumber to provide the specifications. You can describe use cases and allows users to remove logic details from different behavior tests. One quality attribute of Gherkin, it's like it's available for more than 37 languages. So if you are also improving your English skills, you can try first in your native language, and then after some exercises, you can jump to test them in English. There are two main purposes about the Gherkin format. The first one is to document user scenarios, and the second one to write an automated test. also known as the behavior-driven development. Why Gherkin? This is the main question that you can have right now. On our experience, I'm sure we have faced these situations where the client or even us are requesting a requirement, or we have a pain point or a necessity, and we are sharing to our team what we need, but our team start talking us on technical details, like providing how are the steps to follow from technical point of view, not thinking about the user. And even there are some times like the team starts sharing their screens and showing you some code structure. So if you are not a developer, or if you didn't have experience as developer, you are going to understand nothing. So to resolve those situations that you have been facing with Gherkin, your team are going to start thinking about the scenarios that are going to happen, what are the preconditions that need to be fulfilled, what are the actions that are going to trigger anything that you need, and what would be the output expected. So with Gherkin, you are going to reach this different way to understand what is happening with your users, their interactions, and the flows that they need to go through. So why is important to use it on the product roles if this is like a technique used mostly for automation testing, and what are their benefits? In fact, behavioral tests are very similar to the user stories. They describe the goal the user wants to achieve, the steps they'll take, and how the product should respond. Sounds familiar to you? Well, user stories are writing best with Gherkin because it provides a consistent approach to review all the scenarios, define the meaning of them, and providing acceptance criteria that are clear. And some benefits, well, you will catch missing workflows before any work you're going to start. It's a direct correlation between the user workflows and the design that you have developed. Developers know when the story is done because they have clear acceptance criteria. There is no ambiguity, and also apply for QA and product roles. And there is like a standard, a consistent language across the user stories that helps team to focus on delivering user value. Independent of the writing style that you can have. So I want to share with you the structure that Gherkin have, and to share also some examples how you can apply them. So let's start with the feature. The feature needs to have like only one definition. You cannot have different features into the Gherkin structure. You can add like a name to identify it, and as you can see, it's following the template that we saw earlier, like what, why, and who. So in this case, in order to earn money, customers should be able to buy coffee at all times. The customers are our who. The why is in order to earn money, and the what is to buy coffee at all times. It's very important to take care about it because you are respecting the structure of the user stories. And well, moving on, we have the scenarios. So into each detail, you could have one or many scenarios. Some determinable business situations that starts the scenario and contains a description of the scenarios. You are going to find the steps that are required to follow into the scenarios. And if you would have different scenarios, it's very important to highlight them with the keyword scenario. Based on how many keywords you will have, you are going to identify how many scenarios you have into your user story. Moving on, this is like an example of different scenarios that you can have in a user story. So I want to highlight three keywords: the given, when, and then. The use of given keyword is to put the system in a familiar state before the user starts interacting with the system. However, you can omit writing user interactions in given steps if given is like the precondition that you are handling. On the when sentence is the step to define the action performed by the user, and the then keyword is to see the outcome after the action in one step. However, you can only verify noticeable changes. What it means, if you can identify what was the change or the transformation or what is new after the execution of the when, then you can highlight what happened on the then. So this is a an example how you can see and how you can apply the given, the when, and the then into a scenario, and if you have different scenarios. So you can, like on this example, post to your own blog. You can have a fail posting into somebody else's blog, or you can post, for example, on a client's blog. The preconditions, the action that is going to trigger, and the result could be different based on the scenarios that you are providing. Then we will have some patterns. So if you have identified repetitive scenarios, copying and pasting to use different values can quickly become tedious and repetitive. So like we are saying on the left part, we saw like a pattern. We are just changing numbers based on the given, maybe the action that is happening, and the output that you are identified. So the scenarios outline allow us to more concisely express these examples through the use of a template with placeholders. The scenario outline steps provide a template which is never directly run. A scenario outline is run once for each row in the example section beneath it. The scenario outline uses placeholder, which are conditions with the placeholder with the marks that you have in the scenario outline steps. Think of a placeholder like a variable. It is replaced with the real value from the examples you are giving. In this case, for example, you have like three variables, could be the start, the eat, and the left. So given you are starting with a certain number of cucumbers, you can eat some of them. By the end, you will have less amount of cucumbers. So you can provide some examples what is happening. So on the automation part and the behavior, you are providing a conclusion like you are going to have less amount, in this case of cucumbers. It doesn't matter the quantity that you will have on the beginning. If you want to provide more accuracy, so for example, if you have 0 cucumbers, you cannot eat any because you don't have. So it's very important to go deep on all the cases that a user could take action. Finally, I want to provide the details about how to use the background. The background is a concept you can use on Gherkin to provide the business rules that are going to provide governance to your user story. So if there is like a set of conditions need to be fulfilled before to run any scenario, you are going to provide the details of the business rules into the background section. You can provide details on the background section like a scenario using given, when, then, and also you can provide two other keywords like the and the but, let's see how we can apply them. You can apply the and the but if you have multiple givens and then. What is happening could be hard to read if you have only given, and then. So think about what are the behaviors. So you can use these keywords. If you are going to use and, is because the second action is happening after the previous one. And if you are using the but keyword, is because the result is the opposite or is something different as the behavior that you were expecting. So with these examples, we went through the entire structure of Gherkin for the features, the background, the scenarios, how to describe them, to describe the scenarios with given, then, given, when, then format, and also to use and, but keywords, and finally how to create tables for outline scenarios. Now it's time to jump yourself to write to write user stories using Gherkin structure. So the first step is to pull out a blank notepad or full screen write it, because you are going to write a lot before to have your final version. So it's better to use it instead of start tracking into your project system, because you are going to update it so many times. So please start it on a blank page or a blank notepad. Then you need to choose your user story and start writing all the possibilities for the user. What is happening if, for example, your user didn't have a receipt? What if they are returning the microwave past the return policy? This is like the main question. What if? Doing your best and map all the possible actions from your users. Then move on writing the scenarios with the given, when, that format for each scenario. Next, you're going to review all your when, then conditions. If you feel that there are a lot of conditions, you can propose to separate or create different user stories, because our main condition, our pillar, is user story is the smallest piece that delivers value. Please focus looking all your scenarios, narrow them and prioritize them. If there is like a group of them you think should be worked later because of any reason that you could have, you can put them in the icebox. In the backlog. You know, there are so many things that you have in the backlog that never is going to be worked, but is the best approach to identify the priorities that you have for your product and your team. And finally, create your user stories in your tracking system. Okay, so moving forward, we are going to our bonus section, practices to include in your user stories writing cycle. There are some practices and artifacts you can involve in your job, and you are going to provide more quality to the user stories you are going to write. So there are 4 aspects I want to share with you. I have the Three Amigos, personas, healthy backlog, and the customer journey. So let's start with the Three Amigos. The Three Amigos principle says that there are 3 amigos, 1 business analyst, 1 developer, and 1 quality analyst that should get together into a meeting where the business analyst details out each of the business requirements with the team. The quality analyst discuss the test cases already created for the business requirements the BA is providing, and the developer discuss the architecture and the low-level design with the team. The objective of the Three Amigos meeting is to bridge down the gaps in the understanding of the business specification by Three Amigos. Moving forward, with the personas, this is a practice to identify fictional characters where you are going to highlight some details about it, like its feelings, its pain points, what are the social details around them. It's very important to identify all these details around your users because you are going to have a rich detail before to write your user stories. Related with the healthy backlog, this is very important practice, would be nice to apply into all the projects. There are this is the main qualities for the healthy backlog, defined by the DEEP acronym: detailed, appropriately, estimated, emergent, and prioritized. What it means, what this concept means. Detailed appropriately means upcoming items in the backlog can be easily understood by team members without being over detailed. Emergent means a product backlog should evolve, adding new items as we learn more about the problem space. Estimated means a product backlog is a planning tool and helps organize development resources available. Therefore, each upcoming item should have an estimate of how long it will take to complete. And prioritized means items on the backlog should be ranked with the most valuable item on the top. If you can have a healthy backlog, you will have a great practice to write your user stories, because each of the pieces that you are providing to the backlog are fulfilling the deep acronym. And finally, we have our customer journey. This is a great artifact to map the relationship between the customer and the organization over time. Usually, you can use it to map the entire flow that your customer is going through, a feature or a capability that you are offering into your tool. So let's go to an example I built for my experience with some courses inside EPAM, like Product Management University and Product Owner Essentials. I created this customer journey. So I highlighted how you can invest money in a fintech platform. I pointed out the emotions that the user is feeling through the different steps that you take in account to invest money. And I identified the jobs to be done, the context, the touch points, what are the gains, the pains. As user, what are you thinking when you are going through each of the steps? And what opportunities and internal ownerships and metrics you can identify. And related with the personas, this is an example, like a family with the biography of the user. I have identified what are the attributes of his personality, his frustrations, and some single attributes like the gender, the age, and the activity or profession of this user. So to conclude on this webinar, you can use these artifacts to provide more details about your business, about your flows, about the feelings and thoughts of your users. With all this rich data, you will provide more details into your user stories. So your development team will build accurate products because you are handling a standard and also providing enough details about what is expected at the end. Okay, so before to end, would you like to participate in a Gherkin workshop to practice your writing skills? Just to know in the future, it would be nice to have a webinar in a workshop setup and practice this technique to improve your user story writing skills. There are two options, so it's not complicated. And well, we can see in the future how we can build it. Otherwise, it's on your learning path or career goal if you want to keep going into this practice. Well, I guess few people is interested to it, so it's okay. We can keep going. And this is the last question. What did you learn today? Because there were several concepts, just to know which of them were useful to you with this webinar before to jump to the Q&A section. And well, in the meantime, I think that was all. Just for my personal experience, using Gherkin is a great technique to improve your user stories writing skills. It will provide a standard to your team, to your ideas. Anyone will be able to read them, and you are going to facilitate the job for your automation engineers because you are providing them in a structure that is easy to automate. Additionally, for example, with the personas, the healthy backlog, there are several good practices that you can include into your job, and you will reflect it when you are going to write the user stories. Last but not least, it's very important to remember the ground and the fundamentals of the user story, because when you are working with different teams, with different projects and clients, it's hard to find a standard how you can share your user stories to them and how they are going to understand them. So well, if you have this background solid, then you will be able to apply any other technique to improve your current tasks. Well, there are some answers. Thank you so much. I need to practice and practice, never ending story. I learned how to write more effective user stories, including personas and behavior driving response. Gherkin, concept of user stories. This is awesome. Learn to write more effective user stories. I've learned that Gherkin is not only given when then. This is awesome because Gherkin is so rich, and there are people that specialize on writing Gherkin structure. Gherkin seems to be a good technique for explaining and documenting requirements. Yes, absolutely. And this is an open invite to use it, not only to keep thinking in the myth that it's only for testing. As BAs, as product owners, product manager, feel free to use them. Thank you so much for your answers about the learning. And I think we are ready to move on into the Q&A section.
Yes, thank you, Carlos, for your such an informative presentation. And I suppose that each of us can bring something new from this webinar and from your experience. And I suppose that we can start from some basic question. Does it mean that when we are using Gherkin feature that is equal to user story, so that there is no need to use in this case statement as a I want to solve that?
Okay, so as we saw, like there is like the Gherkin has a structure that fulfills the same structure that we are familiar with the user stories. So you should map like the details that you have with your scenarios, the business rules, the business value, just to map into the Gherkin structure. So you are not going to break the format that you are familiar.
And another question related to this statement. In tools like Jira, there is both a description and acceptance criteria sections. I noticed that some people use the description section with which has the SA I want to, so that to include more of the system change details instead of the acceptance criteria section, which has the given when then. Has there been a shift in the industry on how the details are documented in the story?
Well, and this is a good question, and the answer is like no, there are not changes in the industry how to provide details in the user story. I think this is like a subject way how people is providing details into the user stories. So for example, you have like the acceptance criteria section. So you should provide the scenarios into it. And on the descriptions, you can provide like the details about the business value, or you can provide the details about the business rules. It's very important to have an agreement inside the team how you are going to document your user stories. Based on that, you are going to follow that plan so everyone will be able to understand how you are writing the user stories on Jira.
Thank you. How do you store error messages notifications for the scenarios? Inside user story or in the separate file plus link to the user story with the file?
Well, I think the best way to do it is like to have a file with the outputs expected, for example, to show to the users. And inside the user story, also you can provide details on it if there are few errors. So for example, if you have like between 1 to 5 errors, you can handle inside the user story. Otherwise, could be a big number of errors that would be hard to store into the single user story. So you can provide like a detail like, hey, please go deep into the attached file with all the possible errors we have find and with the details when it's expected to see them. So it's very subjective how you can do it.
Thanks. And I suppose very like actual question. Carlos, would you recommend the use of ChatGPT for writing user stories?
Wow, this is an excellent question. I know all of us are in the mood to just to know how we can use ChatGPT and the value that could give to us. I haven't tried yet to write user stories with ChatGPT. I would recommend to use it just to know how accurate it could be. And well, there are different human behaviors that it's hard to train, but I guess we should start giving a chance to the ChatGPT to write user stories. It doesn't mean we are going to lose our jobs because companies are not going to require BAs or other product roles to write user stories, but we will spend valuable time doing other analyzing tasks.
Thanks. I suppose it's very actual question for now because it's very like looks like very useful tool for each of us, but we should understand how we can work and use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, next question. What inspired you to use Gherkin as a tool for writing user stories and defining behavior? What challenges have you encountered when using Gherkin for your behavior approach? And how have you addressed these challenges?
Wow. This is hard because there are like three questions. So let's start one by one. The inspiration that I had to use Gherkin was like moving team by team or changing through different companies. People started to say to me, hey, Carlos, I don't understand your user stories. And when I found a proper standard, Then into the next company with other people, they say to me, I don't understand your writing skills. I don't understand this user story. So I was requested to change my user story writing skills. So it was a challenge just to change like every 6 months or every year. So I decided like to stop doing that. So i I prepare myself how to use Gherkin and to explain to my team and to the stakeholders how it is working. And everyone agrees that is one of the easiest ways to provide details about interactions and user behaviors. So that was my inspirations. About challenges and how I addressed them was the errors when I was used Gherkin. Like I remember in one of the answers, it requires a lot of practice. And when you provide the Gherkin user stories to your automation team or your QA area, maybe it is going to be broke because you wrote something in the wrong way. So this is the main challenge, how to write them in the proper way based on the structure that it's defined, that it's universal, could work on several automation tools, and like to map all the possible scenarios. So if you have stakeholders that are telling you to build all the behaviors that you have identified, well, start asking to them if they have enough money, if they have enough time to build them, if the knowledge and the resources that you have right now are enough to satisfy all the behaviors that you have identified. So I can say how to address these challenges is to negotiate with the stakeholders and the team what is the most priority to be built in the plans that the product or team has right now.
Thank you. And I suppose that it will be last question for today, but um, I suppose it will be a big question. Could you please say more about the screen table with the title Customer Journey Map?
Sure, of course. Maybe I can even go back. Yes, about this table, it's like one of the formats I picked because there are different templates you can use to build a customer journey map. So on the columns, I identified the steps by steps users needed to go through. So in my case, I identify 7 steps from the very beginning, like creating an account until the end to withdraw the money in an ATM, for example, or to receive directly in your savings account in your bank. It's very important to identify the steps that you want to map. And then I went through different aspects, like what are the actions the users need to do, what are the contexts and the touch points that are around the users, what are the main aspects users are gaining with this flow, what are their pains, what are they thinking, and how they are feeling. So you can use other templates, you can involve other attributes. So for example, even you can involve like a metric like the revenue, the satisfaction, some numbers about how the quantity of users that are going through each one of the steps. So basically, take time to identify what you want to analyze about your users, and the main criteria will be the steps on the flow you want to analyze. If you want to build like a customer journey through an entire product, maybe you will need different templates or different tables to map the entire scope. Otherwise, if you want to go to you through your main flow, it will be enough only with one table if you want.
Okay. Thank you for all your answers and thank you for all your questions. And now I suppose that, Carlos, you need to determine the best question and the author will receive a badge.
Excellent. Well, I guess the most the winner question was with recommend to use ChatGPT for writing user stories, because even I'm feeling afraid if I'm going to be replaced with an artificial intelligence.
Perfect. So, Gonzalo Diaz, I suppose that you will receive a badge from our community as the most curious on our webinar. So thank you, Carlos, for your time and for your presentation. And thank you, audience, also for your time and for joining us. And see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.